Hi, I'm Jenica Davis-Hockett, and I work for Lifespan Faith Engagements. I'm Youth Ministry Specialist, and I live in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Hey, I'm Stevie Carmody, and I work for the UUA office as the Emerging Adult Ministry Associate, which means I try to support, connect, and resource 18 to 24-year-old Unitarian Universalists and those who love and minister to them. And I'm calling in from my home in Sunnyside, Queens, and we're doing good here.
Great. I'm Sarah. I'm calling in from Lawrenceburg, Tennessee. I work with Stevie and Jenna on the Lifespan Faith Engagement office as the Youth and Young Adults of Color Ministry Manager. And so I'm all about equity and justice in the system for our young people of color.
So we wanted to make this video today because we are also, the three of us, on the scholarship committee for youth and young adults, which means that we are thinking through how to distribute funds for things like trainings and events, for youth ministry and young adult ministry projects. And this is really an interesting time to be distributing money. So what with a bulk of our funds usually going to supporting like travel subsidies and registration fees for in-person events, since we are, many of us, social distancing and on lockdown right now, we are thinking through what are some different ways that we can get money out to people in ways that make sense. So we've come up with a virtual trainings grant that I'm curious, Stevie and Sarah, how you would categorize this grant.
Yeah, I think that it has to do with equipping and resourcing our young people in our movement towards whatever communities and connections and movements that we're building next. And that might look like getting the subscriptions to the things that make your meetings more accessible. That might mean getting the training to like learn how more deeply to make an online space interactive and engaging so that it can be really transformational in the way we want them to be. But really the idea is to connect resources directly with young people within Unitarian Universalism so that they're set up to step into leadership however this moment calls them.
We have some questions that we are going to reflect on for you all as you might be thinking, oh my gosh, we just fundraised so much to get to GA or Thrive or Summer Seminary, and we don't really know what's next now that those things are shifting. So we just wanted to break apart, demystify some of the things in our process to help you. The first question is, why do you have this money? And Jenica spoke a little bit too about why we have this pot of money in terms of scholarships to get people to GA and summer programs, and that money is in some ways freed up. I did want to take like a step back and talk about where the UUA gets its money from. I think, although I would love some other input about, is that some of it from congregations, some of it your givers, some of it income from programs and publications. Are there other places that are money from that y'all know about?
Put me on the spot, but I think those cover a lot of those. They come from our people.
Right. Our people, and also wealthy people.
Wealthy people.
Right? Like Unitarian Universalists have a lot of generational wealth, a lot of property. So that's in part, that feels important. That's where the wealth comes from. And just a little note about profit is that it comes from excess that belongs to regular, everyday people and workers.
That's
that
well
feels
said.
Important to name.
That's well said.
Anything else on the why do we have this money?
I would just say that we're highly motivated before the annual budget year comes to a close at the end of June. We're highly motivated to disperse this funding because that's sort of how we build our budgets and how we plan for the future. And so we know that the time frame is kind of short, but it's something that we're motivated around dispersing.
That's really
Great.
cool.
Yeah.
Why are you most excited about this grant or these types of grants?
And there's that beautiful graphic. I'm excited about it because to have imagination is one thing, which our people have, and then to have the things to like to materialize it in their work is another thing. And so I'm excited to meet our folks' imaginations and curiosity with resources to like make a shape and form with it through trainings and things that make spaces more accessible.
Yeah, I think that for me, it's really connected to that, Sarah. I'm excited about it because it has something to do with trust, that we trust that communities on a local level and people themselves know how to use funding, and that we're going to ask to find out a little bit about how that funding is going to go to or what it will be supporting, mostly because we're excited about learning. But we're trying to grow in as an office and as a scholarship committee into also trusting you that you know where those resources are needed most and what's powerful to build your movement right now.
I'm excited about it because I think about how it feels like we're quite a far ways off from any kind of new normal, and this is a time where we are creating what that new normal will be together, and to be able to resource the creation of that. And like I've just been thinking so much about how every single person has a really important role in impacting or inspiring others. I mean, that's the whole lesson of something going viral. And so we're hoping that this money can really amplify the impact of creating that new normal together.
So, what does youth safety have to do with grants?
We've been working like as the Youth Ministry Roundtable for years on creating comprehensive safety policies for in-person events. And now all of a sudden, without hosting in-person events, we're realizing that, oh, there's this whole new brave world of online safety that we have to be thinking through. So the UUA Youth Ministry Roundtable has been doing some thinking about best practices that we want to share with y'all. And we also want that to be able to ripple out as well. So as we're encouraging youth to attend webinars or other trainings, what are the ways that we can be in conversation with those hosts to say, hey, what are you doing for youth safety in your online spaces?
And
yeah,
in a really practical sense, it's making sure that when people are going to trainings and hosting things, that we make sure that there's not interactions between adults and youths in a private message chatting. We're watching out for that. We're watching out that these are safe spaces where the likelihood of harm around violence or sexualized behavior, inappropriate sexualized behavior could be reduced. So those sorts of things.
Yeah, and I think also it's about building a movement around safety and switching safety culture from this policing to resourcing, more resourcing. And so I like to think of it as when we put out the safety guidelines in the application and people are sort of vetting whatever training they're looking at, that we're also resourcing another organization, that we're cross-pollinating what safety looks like for us and for them, and building a stronger movement is kind of what it feels like. And it's about building trust, I think, also, to point to what Stevie said last time about wanting our young folks to trust us, that we are asking the hard questions about what's going to set them up for success and what's going to allow them to do their jobs in a way that is visionary and is pastoral and prophetic, and so we want to have their backs in that work. All right, we have one more. Oh yes, Jennifer.
Oh, I was just going to say, what tips for reducing barriers and redistributing resources have we thought through? I'm loving these graphics, by the way.
I'm going to put your Venmo in the description, Stevie, for your magnificent art. One of the things we have talked about on the scholarship committee that is kind of applicable now, but maybe more applicable to whatever project you're dreaming up, is that we've really interrogated what's the information we need to know from people to assess their need, which is such a strange question of worthiness. And in our process, in other spaces, we were looking at how things like income and home ownership are only a piece of the puzzle about how we redistribute funds. We're looking at like debt that's not homes, like student debt. We're looking at like also breaking that completely down. I think that like to ask about worthiness of resources is kind of an odd question. So to kind of live in that absurdity a little bit of qualifications, that's part of it.
I've had to teach myself about the different funds that are available to me and like what the restrictions are. And so like part of this since January, when we started convening as a scholarship committee, was like actually like trying to talk to the people, very friendly people here at the UUA, who are very knowledgeable about educating me about the specific pots of money and how they can be used. And it's not like it's a super restrictive thing, but once I learned sort of the parameters, like, oh, this has to go to youth and young adult leadership, then I feel more empowered to stretch the flexibility of how we're using this away from how it's been typically used into a new way. So just like learning where the furniture in the room is. And that's a little bit about knowledge gathering.
And we've been thinking through what different kinds of relationships of accountability are important to us. So is it a matter of we want somebody to take this money, use it, and then produce something with it that then is of benefit to the UUA, or not? Do we want to hold somebody accountable by asking them to write a 5-page report on the experience, or not? And going back to that idea of trust, that what is our role in asking, what is our role in following up where the money goes?
Yeah, I was reminded of this computer thing that we worked through about thinking, oh, could this be used to loan out laptops for people to go to programs? And there was just this light bulb moment of, yes, and could we perhaps just give them a computer? And then Stevie looked up the price of a Google something, and it was probably the cost of shipping to a person's house. And so that for me speaks to like what you were sharing, Jenica, of like what's the product or what's the relationship. I think about like redistributing resources is that it's supposed to like alter the nature of one's relationship. The point is not to end up with the same resources at the end of the day. So if we bought a computer, sent it, and then got it back, that's not quite redistributing resources. Similarly, if it's transactional and they're asked to produce a product, that really just is labor that has the potential to be exploited again. And so all of those are really critical questions.
I sort of want to restate just the outline of the what we're hoping to do, which is that we're offering grant money for youth and young adults so that they can skill up and resource the work that they might be doing online and community building this spring and into the future. The application is pretty simple. It asks you to tell us about what you need the money for in terms of a training or another resource, and like sort of how it's going to fit into where you are in this moment. And then also it asks you about if you're thinking about using that training or that resource to create something, like what does that sort of look like? Do you need any help with that? We can help you out as well. And then like at the end of it, is there anything you'd love to share back from this experience? And setting a pretty low bar around that, but mostly because we care about working to develop relationships. So
thanks for tuning in. Look forward to redistributing some resources. Jenica?
Yeah, what's the best way for people to reach us if they want to either learn more about our process or workshop their own process?
can we do that thing where we go, link in the bio?
Link in the
Link in the back. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.